hello there, and welcome to another episode of Scouting 5, recapping scouting news from around the world for the week of November 22nd, 2021. I'm Scouter Ken, and I am recording this week from Bitchamount, Alberta. A historic milestone for the Arab and Asia-Pacific scouting regions of the World Organization of the Scouting Movement took place this past weekend at the first ever virtual NSOs International Commissioners Gathering. This was held on the 20th of November. The aim of the gathering was to strengthen relationships and to foster mutual cooperation between national scout organizations in the Arab and Asia-Pacific regions of the world. International commissioners welcomed this as an opportunity to discuss common grounds of interest. Mr. Amir Hamdi, for example, the regional director for the Arab Scout region, was quoted as saying, quote, "I think that the best and first thing we should do to create a better world is to know each other, to start looking and exploring what we can do to create a better world. How can we make it easier? How can we open channels of communication between young people in all regions?" End quote. It wasn't a particularly long meeting. The initial discussion was described as brief but fruitful, after which the international commissioners dispersed into virtual breakout rooms to discuss topics such as cooperation and linking opportunities between NSOs, potential partnerships with other entities in their respective regions, understanding roles in the global strategy for scouting, and scouting in the post-pandemic era. The commissioners hope that this meeting, and more like it in the future, no doubt, will help to strengthen the bond and form a lasting relationship between the Arab and Asia-Pacific scouting regions. And of course, this is something that you've heard me talk about before if you've been listening to Scouting 5 for a while, but it's a story that keeps coming up again and again. This time, the particular example is from Kendallville, Indiana. But scout groups around the world are in constant need of volunteers. And certainly scouts in Kendallville are in exactly that same boat. There's two men, Jim Stout and Tom Jansen, serving as the chairman and vice chairman for the Pokagon district, one of three districts in the Anthony Wayne Area Council. Within the Pokagon district, there are 320 Cub Scouts. That is a lot, as well as 270 Scouts, 41 Venturer and Explorer Scouts, and these are split between four counties, Noble, DeKalb, LaGrange, and Steuben, as well as the northern half of Allen County. Ooh, I've been there. But especially to expand the programming offerings to girls, because of course girls have been able to join Scouts BSA for going on 3 years now, coming up on that. They are in need of ever more volunteers, and especially women, and also men. They are hoping to grow their ability to offer programming to youth in their counties. And to do that, well, that means more troops. That means more kids registering in those troops. And that means they need more adult volunteers. But like I say, this is a story that keeps coming up again and again from every region of the world that I can think of. And it's probably the case that there is a scout group in your area right now that could use some help. So if you're not currently volunteering, and I mean, you're listening to a scouting podcast, so I imagine you probably are, but in the odd chance that you're not currently volunteering with a scout group in your area, please do consider doing so, because chances are they need the help. And this is something that I know I mentioned last week, but it's still an ongoing thing. It's Thanksgiving week in the United States right now. And of course, Cubs and Scouts are going to be holding food drives. They call it Scouting for Food in the United States. It's a really, really great thing that they do. And if you're living in the US right now and there's a scout group in your area, chances are you may have already had them come to your door and leave some kind of notification or perhaps even a bag on your porch or in your mailbox asking for a food donation. If not, expect them to come by soon. And please do consider supporting them generously, because this is a great time of year. Well, it is a great time of year. Thanksgiving in the US right now, Christmas coming up soon, but it's also a hard time of year for a lot of families, those who are maybe struggling to get by in a good week. They don't necessarily have the same opportunities to take part in all of the feasting and merrymaking that we kind of associate with this time of year. And Scouting for Food definitely aims to try and do what can be done within localities to alleviate some of that and to give people in need a chance to, well, put a meal on the table, perhaps a couple of meals on the table, but especially, to do so at this time of year when celebrating with family, with food is kind of a big deal. This next story has a bit of a sad origin. It's from the Scouts in, I'm assuming it's Wire, W-Y-R-E, UK Scout group. They tragically lost one of their Explorer Scouts. He took his own life. I don't know if this was last year or the year before, but quite recently from what I gather. In the wake of his passing, 2 of their Explorer Scouts came forward and designed a program to raise awareness of youth suicide in memory of this youth, Mr. Lucas Backhouse. To do this, they have organized a 24-hour bike-a-thon, and they're going to be raising money for the charity Papyrus, which is focused on the prevention of youth suicide. And basically, they are looking for, anybody who wants to take part in the event. So there will be a link to their Facebook post in the show notes, and of course, from there you can find a link to find out more information about the event and to register for it as well. And some interesting news out of Scouts Canada. Move over, Scout Association in the UK. You have Bear Grylls as your chief scout, and now we, here in Canada, have our own outdoor survivalist type. That's right. Now, you may remember, I think I've mentioned Les Stroud on the podcast before. He was, of course, the face of the Great 8 Challenge that Scouts Canada rang in the summer with. I believe that was a summer event. My, how time flies. But since that time, Scouts Canada, I guess, has evidently been in further talks with Mr. Stroud, and so they have announced him this week as their new chief scout. They're very thrilled to team up with him, an experienced adventurer whose passion for the natural world and outdoor skills certainly matches the scouting ideal. There'll be a link in the show notes to a little video sort of introducing Mr. Stroud and introducing the chief scout role if you're not familiar with either. And hopefully this is a great partnership. I know that partnering with Bear Grylls and having him be the chief scout for the last several years has been just an absolute boon to the UK Scout organization, and he's been a great face for it. He certainly has. And my hope is that Les Stroud will do the same and be the same for Scouts Canada. And finally, just a little programming note. I have been considering doing Twitter Spaces now and again. So the way this works, basically, like a Twitter Space is essentially just a chat room, an audio chat room that is hosted through Twitter. So if any of you out there are listening to this and you'd be interested in doing that, cool, great. Just keep an eye on the Scouting Stuff Twitter page. That's twitter.com/SSYSK podcast. I should really change that handle since I have been sort of slowly rebranding the podcast. But at any rate, twitter.com/SSYSK podcast. Make sure you follow if you haven't already. And just keep an eye. I will probably make a point of scheduling these things in advance, and then, I'll put the next scheduled time into the tail end of future Scouting 5 episodes. But it would be really great to just, meet with people online, have a little conversation about scouting. And the cool thing is I can actually also record those and turn them into other episodes, whether those are Scouting 5 episodes or Scouting Stuff episodes or just bonus content. It could be a really cool thing for the podcast if there's interest in it. So keep an eye, and we will see where this goes. And that is all the news I have for you this week. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, be prepared.